Welcome to Stakeholder-Centered Coaching, where we believe everyone deserves a stakeholder-centered leader. I'm Brandon Murgard, CEO of Stakeholder-Centered Coaching, and I am joined by the absolutely fabulous founder of Stakeholder-Centered Coaching, the only person in the world to have ranked twice as the world's #1 leadership coach, been ranked as the world's #1 coach for years. I think everyone here has read most of his books, although there are more than 3 million in circulation, but I think we've read many of the titles. Let's do this. Hop in the chat and tell us which book was your favorite. Which book has been your favorite? I'll start by saying What Got You Here Won't Get You There was my gateway drug to all of this stakeholder-centered concepts. Is just will stay with me for forever. I'm curious what yours is. Good. Ho was the first one here with What Got You There Won't Get You There. Ladies and gentlemen, the man of the hour, Marshall Goldsmith, please join me in welcoming him to the session. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you. Can you hear me and see me okay? All right, very good. Let's get rolling. I think most of you know who I am, so we're going to get started. Getting started, I want you to welcome to MarshallBot, MarshallGoldsmith.ai. Now, as Brandon said, go to MarshallGoldsmith.ai/login. That's the best way to get in and experiment with this. MarshallGoldsmith.ai/login. And I'm going to give you the history of this project. After I give you the history, I'm going to talk about the future of the project. We're going to talk about ways you can use this as a coach. And we have a contest. I'll tell you what the contest is now, and I'll repeat it because some people wanted to know. Whoever asks MarshallBot the most questions in the next week, I'm going to spend an hour for free. So I'm going to spend an hour for you or your clients on video, however you want. You tell me. I'll do it like now, late at night, early in the morning, whenever time you want. I'll spend an hour for free. And basically, rather than have a bureaucracy, I just trust everybody. So just tell me how many questions you were asked. So ask the questions, write down notes, any comments you have. Whoever does the most wins. For the first, whoever's #1, you're going to get a free hour. Whoever's #2, I'm going to take the next 10 people, and we're going to do a session just for 10 people. So just go to MarshallGoldsmith.ai/login, and that should get you in. And if you have any problems getting in, just send a chat to Brandon and he can help you. Now, let's get started. Let me give you the history of this project first, and then please be writing down questions that you might have for me. The history of the project. I've wanted to give away everything I know to as many people as I can for years. So I've had this goal for a long time. And for the last 20 years before this year, I was trying to do it with pretty much complete and total failure. I can think back to the various attempts we've made. We had something called interactive video, which sounded good at the time. It was this clunky box. It was very heavy. You had to cart around with you. Clients had to have special connections on the internet. It cost, I think, $3,000 or $4,000 to buy the thing. It was in hindsight, it was completely primitive. It was kind of a joke by today's standards. Even as recently as a year ago, we're working on something called the Philanthropy Project. And people were figuring out, how do you give away things to people? How do you let them ask questions? And we worked on branching and all kinds of ideas. And in hindsight, this was equivalent to getting a bunch of monkeys in a room with typewriters and expecting them to write the Gettysburg Address. It just wasn't going to happen. We tried, we failed, we tried, we failed, we tried, we failed. Good-hearted people, we all gave it a good shot. Smart people, just didn't work. In the last year, this has been a phenomenal breakthrough. Now, one advice I'm going to give to everybody conceptually is this: don't lose the forest for the trees here. I mean, I've seen people talk about this stuff. They get into, well, the wording of item 3 said, or item 4 said, and this is changing the world. This is mind-blowing. So the important thing is the little stuff is important, but don't get lost at the little stuff at the expense of the big stuff. None of this stuff was even vaguely possible. So I wanted to give away everything I knew to as many people as I can for free. Now, again, I just had my birthday. about 3 or 4 days ago. I had a birthday, 75. Yay. So now I know it's hard to believe, but I am indeed 75 years old. So I just had my birthday. And again, in my birthday, a lot of my life is legacy. A lot of my life is legacy, just giving back. And this is kind of like a legacy project for me. This is all free. Now, another thing that's interesting about this is there is no catch. Normally, when people give you something, it's a trick. Well, this is free, but if you do this, you get the special door and you get this and that. And then pay this money, you get such and such. Well, the nice thing about this, the only trick to this is there's no trick. There is no magical door or something later you pay for. It's all free. Now, the history of this is I am very, very fortunate and unusual to be able to do this for a few reasons. One, to make this work, you have to have a lot of content. And as Brandon mentioned, I've got a lot of content. Two, you have to have a lot of followers. Because if you give away everything you know, but nobody cares, it doesn't really matter. So you need to have a lot of content and you need to have a lot of followers. So I've got a lot of followers. Three, you got to be willing to give it away. Well, not too many people, a lot of content, a lot of followers willing to give it all away. And then four, the fine people at Fractal Analytics who are paying for this, they've written about $2 million worth of checks to make this thing work. You have to have somebody to support you. Now, why are they doing this? For those of you from India, you can appreciate this. Basically, the Hindu philosophy, parent, God, teacher. The teacher is a big deal. Guru just means teacher in Hindi. And for these nice people, I'm guru. And this is give back. So I'm very honored by this. They're not getting paid for this at all. And this is costing them a lot of money. So this is a project that, they're pretty much doing out of the goodness of their hearts. For those of you who are in India, I am going to be coming to India end of May, June. I'm going to do 2 weeks in the Middle East and India. So I will be over there. So, I'm on the way. Now, once the project got started, here's kind of the past and the future. The sequence of events right now, what you're going to see is largely text, T-E-X-T, text. So right now it is largely based on text. I've provided about 2 million words into MarshallBot already. I've spent hundreds of hours on this thing. I've provided 2 million words already. And right now it is largely text-based. You type in a question, it types back an answer. Pretty soon it's going to be audio-based as well. You talk to it and it talks back. Then after that, it's going to be video. So you're going to be able to see and hear a video that looks and sounds exactly like me. Now, the technical quality on this stuff is mind-blowing. I sent a demo video to my daughter, Kelly. And I said, Kelly, this is about this computer bot. Tell me what you think. She watched it 2 minutes and said, well, this is not about a computer bot. It's my father talking about management. After 2 minutes, she said, shit, that's not my father. It took my own daughter 2 minutes to figure out it wasn't me. Well, that's my daughter. So this is coming. Next, the video is designed to be available in multiple languages. So you're going to be able to talk to this thing and see a computer-generated image of me that looks and sounds like me and speaks in multiple languages. Ask it pretty much any question you want to ask related to our field. It's going to answer it for free millions of times around the world. So this is mind-blowing. Now, my original goal in doing this was that it would answer any question you asked me about as well as I could, most of the time. Looking back, my original goal was pretty boring. Right now, not only can it answer questions pretty much as well as I can, it can answer about 100 times as many questions. My daughter, for example, Kelly said, how is your coaching related to utilitarian philosophy? I didn't know what utilitarian philosophy is. And it just came up with a brilliant answer. Well, what it does is it searches the internet studies various things, analyzes them, looks at everything I do, connects that with what I do, and provides an answer that's roughly what I would say in my own voice. This is amazing. Now, for example, this one might be fun if you're online already. Go to, again, MarshallGoldsmith.ai/login. You can get online and say, how is Buddhist philosophy related to your coaching? Well, I'm a Buddhist. There's lots of answers. Then you could say, well, one element of Buddhist philosophy is impermanence. How is impermanence related to your coaching? It goes on and on and on. So, and by the way, the answers are not perfect today, but they're only getting better and better and better. I mean, you can look at this and you say, well, it has this problem, this is that point, that point. It's not going to get worse. It's only going to get better and better and better. So if you look at the history of this, the progress, in the last 2 months, the curve has gone like that. It has just gotten so much better in the last 2 months. It's mind-blowing. Now, as a coach, I'm going to give you some examples of real-life case studies that have really been shocking to me. One of my coaching guys that I donate my time to, I don't charge him because he's CEO of a children's hospital, is Dr. Patrick Frias. Dr. Frias is in charge of Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego. They're merging with another children's hospital in Orange County. They're going to have the largest children's hospital in the United States. Dr. Patrick is going to be a co-CEO. So I asked Dr. Patrick kind of has an emergency call with me because he's got immediate needs. He says, look, I'm going to be a co-CEO. I've never done anything like this for the next 2 years. What's it like to be a co-CEO? Well, there are very few co-CEOs in the world. As a model, it frequently doesn't work. Sometimes it does. KKR, huge success story. Carlisle, disaster success story. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. I've coached 3 people maybe that were co-CEOs, but I asked MarshallBot, boom, here's the opportunities being co-CEO. Here are the challenges. Here's suggestions on how to be a co-CEO. It went on and on. Then within the suggestion component, one of the ideas was you need to set boundaries in your roles. Then he said, I'd like to know more about that. Boom. It goes into great detail about how to set boundaries within your role. Well, basically, this was mind-blowing. After we got finished analyzing this, he said, well, do you have any other things to add? I said, well, I don't know. I threw in an idea or two, which was, I thought not that much. He was kind of, oh, your idea is great. Well, I think he's being kind to me. I'm not sure I really added much value at all. So this was just mind-blowing. Now, some coaches are threatened by this. Here's why I don't think you should be threatened. Most coaches are not in the advice-giving business. Stakeholder-centered coaching is really a process of facilitation. Most of what my clients have learned over the years, they didn't learn from me anyway. The clients learn from everyone around them. The clients learn from everyone around them. Well, one of the great things that we teach is called feed forward. The whole premise of MarshallBot is feed forward. You ask for ideas, you get ideas. You often get many ideas. You don't have to do it. You read it, you listen to the ideas, you do what works for you. The whole concept of a coach really, to me, is execution much more than knowledge and idea generation. MarshallBot is focused on knowledge, idea generation, and Brandon's going to give you a lot of other ways it can be used. That is not predominantly the focus of the coach anyway. The focus of the coach isn't just generating ideas. The focus of the coach is helping people actually do something. I recently, yesterday, read a little new research study was done on medical doctors. It was a study done on medical doctors and compliance with taking medicine. And compliance with taking medicine is typically a disaster. The average patients don't do well at all. Well, as it turned out, the average medical doctor barely does better than the average human being, although they're medical doctors. Well, it's not that they don't understand the theory or that they don't even believe in what they're doing. They prescribe the medicine to themselves, and they still don't take it. The problem is day-to-day execution. And the real advantage of stakeholder coaching is really focused not on some instant religious experience, but the day-to-day work involved. Now, let me give you a couple of other coaching examples. This one is a mind-blowing. There's a young guy named Steve Balaban. Now, Steve is starting a high-tech startup company. They just did what's called, I think, a Series C, and it was valued at, I don't know, X billion dollars. He's a unicorn. Brilliant guy. Steve talked to me and Mark Thompson about coaching him. And he thought, well, he got busy and he really didn't return emails. I just thought he blew the whole thing off for 6 months. He was a little embarrassed. He was hugely successful in his fundraising. He's going to have some fun. So he goes to MarshallBot. And he says, I was going to get an executive coach, but I'm an entrepreneur startup doing the Series C thing. And here's what happened. I got very busy. I didn't have a chance to follow up. It's been about 6 months. It was kind of embarrassing. What should I do? He did it almost as a joke, thinking there's no way this thing's going to answer the question. Boom. Well, the Series C is very important. I can understand as an entrepreneur why that's so critical to you. I can understand why you got distracted. It's perfectly normal. Here's the way I would deal with this. I would call the person who was going to be your coach and do the following. It went through incredible detail. He ended up doing exactly what it said. He just said, this is mind-blowing. Look, this is a young high-tech guy who's in an AI business who's got a net worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars. This is not a kid who's stupid. He knows what he's doing. It was mind-blowing to him. So this is very, very, very interesting. And he just couldn't believe it. Now, some other examples of this. So I'm coaching the CEO of Kraft Heinz, Carlos. So again, Mark Thompson and I are coaching him. And I use this with all my coaching clients now. Why? I do not have a photographic memory. I cannot survey the base of human knowledge in 5 seconds. And it can come up with ideas. My clients are all adults. They don't have to do any of the stuff they don't want to do it. But it comes up with lots of ideas. I'm working with Kraft Heinz, the same thing. CEO has questions. In front of him, I sit there and ask for ideas. Blah, 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 blah. We have a dialogue. Sometimes he wants to go into more detail. Boom. We have a dialogue about that. So as we go on, it has been amazingly helpful to me as a coach. Now, I'm going to give all of you some coaching. Don't get into a smartness contest with this thing. You're not going to win. It's way smarter than I am. And you're not going to win some IQ contest with this. No human can do this. No human can do this. So that would be like trying to compete with computing with a computer. You can't do it. You can't do it. So anyway, that is some of the thoughts that we've had so far. And the idea for you as a stakeholder-centered coaching is to be able to do this yourself. Be able to use this yourself. And again, we're going to have a contest. I want to get 1 million questions asked to MarshallBot as soon as I can. Right now, I think we're up to 32,000 questions. It has already been asked 32,000 questions. So our contest is whoever asks MarshallBot the most questions in the next week, I am going to donate 1 hour for video. And the next 10, I'll do a video for the 10 together in a little group. So I'm looking forward to this. For me, back to my legacy, this is probably job one in my life right now. So this is basically give back. I'm 75. I don't have any reason to save things. So hopefully this will help you help other people. Now, Brandon has been doing some amazing stuff. Brandon, by the way, let's hear it for Brandon, who set up this whole idea of this phone call. Yay, Brandon. Brandon has been doing some amazing stuff. And Brandon is putting together ways that you, as a stakeholder-centered coach, can use this. He's got some super examples from his own life. So, Brandon, why don't you go through? And by the way, Brandon asked me a couple times. He said, "Oh, well, I think we should teach people, tell people MarshallBot can do this and this." I told Brandon, "Look, I don't want to oversell this thing. I don't want to overpromise it. I'm not sure it can do that." Boom, 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 boom. He came up with all kinds of applications that I had no idea it could even do. So, Brandon, why don't you talk about some of the neat things that you've done and talk about some ways that people or stakeholder-centered coaches can do this?
That it would be my pleasure. Thank you, Marshall, for the handoff. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. My hope in the next few minutes is that I can show you some really game-changing ways, and as Marshall said, don't oversell, game-changing ways that stakeholder-centered coaches can use this to solve some pretty significant problems. And what I want to say is, I'm just a curious tinkerer. Many of you have written in saying, here's a challenge I've got. I need help with this problem. I've got this question. I need an answer quickly. And you and your questions have been what have facilitated the success with MarshallBot. So I'm going to share a screen and just go through some really fascinating ways to use MarshallBot. So I'll eyes off of the chat for a moment. But the first thing is with any AI engine, and especially MarshallBot, you can talk to it to train you to use it. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is to say, MarshallBot, what problems can you help me solve? And this is what he's put in. As coaches, I can help you with scalability to guide more clients faster than one person can do alone. Accessibility, people who don't have the means to afford your coaching, we can prescribe them MarshallBot, but you can also make coaching more accessible in the session by using it to solve problems in real time. Consistency of advice, it can provide accountability. And when I say accountability, I'd encourage you to play with plugging in feedback and asking how you can convert this into feed forward, because this is something that MarshallBot can do. It can do feedback into feed forward. It can work on feed forward into an action plan. It can work on action plan into daily checklists. Feedback, it can provide feedback on scenarios. I had a client who had a stakeholder who said this, what would you tell them, Marshall? And that is so cool. It's like a pocket Marshall in real time. Resource optimization. It can help you, of course, navigate nuances, but it can also tell you which resources to pull for which issues, which books he would recommend to go to. You can ask him for stories. Today we were playing, Marshall, can you give me a Buddhist parable about delegation? Well, here you go. My favorite is the story of I think it was the boat in the river. Learning and development. It's got all of Marshall's articles. You don't need to go and search for answers anymore. They're all cooked into here. Behavioral reinforcement, feed forward. There's so much, but I really appreciate also, Marshall, is that you give disclaimers and you have very good parameters about what you will and won't speak on. Do you want to comment on that at all, Marshall?
Yeah, Brandon, thank you very much. I forgot that. One of the things that we're working on, this is a very, very important point, is training MarshallBot on what not to talk about. Number one, don't talk about medical advice. Number two, don't talk about politics. Now, I don't know if you're familiar what happened with Google and their Gemini bot, but they had an implosion. It was a disaster. Nate Silver is a statistician, and he's a Democrat. He said the average Googlebot Gemini response to a question is that the San Francisco city council member. It is all woke left-wing American politics. Now, I don't care about politics one way or the other. I don't take a stand on this, that, or the other. The reality is most human beings around the world are not that interested in left-wing American politics. And this is just run down your throat, whether you want it to be or not. They had a blow up with this, and they lost $100 billion in one day based on this blow up. So one of the things we're doing is we're programming, this is not politics, one way or the other. This is not about medical advice. This is not about financial advice. One thing you want to do is avoid any liability. Where's the liability? Politics is nothing but a liability. All you can do is make people angry. Medical advice, you can't win. This is not about medical advice. Financial advice, you can't win. This is not about financial advice. This is just about people, interactions, things that I've written or talked about. Anything related to that, this can do. This is being trained not to discuss other topics because there's nothing but a disaster you're going to get into. Now, Brandon, I'm glad you brought this up. There's one thing I did not talk about, and that is bias. Now, the whole idea of something is unbiased is kind of a joke. There's always some bias. For example, my old mentor was Dr. Paul Hersey, who invented situational leadership with Ken Blanchard. Ken Blanchard, by the way, a great guy. We just had lunch together a few days ago. Wonderful human being. Paul Hersey, no longer with us, invented situational leadership with Ken Blanchard. Paul Hersey taught me always use operational definitions. What is an operational definition? He said, don't pretend that your definition is the only definition or the right definition. It's just your definition. So for example, what is leadership? Paul would say, leadership is working with and through others to achieve objectives. And the key word is the word others, as opposed to achievement, doing something by yourself. And Paul would always say, somebody say, well, I disagree with you. I think leadership is something else. We'd say, okay, thank you for sharing. We have a different view of how we define a word. There are probably 20 different definitions, and they're all probably fine. This isn't a contest. Well, the problem with ChatGPT or a normal AI engine is you ask it a question, as soon as it comes up with an answer, all right, according to who? Well, the according to who is generally a consensus of the internet. I'm not saying that's bad or good. That's just generally what it is. Well, this is answers that basically are answers I've approved. I'm not saying the right answer or the best answer or a good answer. Here's my answers. And as far as I know, I'm one of the few human beings on Earth who's actually had the opportunity to do this. Well, all I'm saying is these are just my opinions. I'm not saying they're right, they're wrong, good, bad. Use them in the spirit of what you're given. If they work for you, fine. If they don't work for you, that's also fine. The intent of this, though, is not to be political, not to ram some agenda down people's throats, but rather just to express as best I can in a fair way, what my opinions are. So, Brandon, this is a very, very good point that you're making. What is it and what it is not? So, very important. I definitely want this not to be about politics. One book I wrote with Sally Hogan's called How Women Rise. I'm so proud of that book. I mean, Sally wrote the book. She had 85% of the content. I helped out a little bit. One thing I'm proud of, we got no negative political feedback in America from the right wing or the left wing either. Writing a book for women with no negative political feedback is virtually impossible in the United States. Well, we did it. I'm very proud of that. The book has been hugely successful around the world. One reason is it's not about politics. It's not about agenda. It's not about pushing somebody's view this way or that way. It's just trying to help people. So anyway, that's a key focus on this is keep it to what it is and not what it's not. So Brandon, thank you. That was great. Give some more ideas.
Yeah, I'm going to, we've already got a suggestion here from David Thomas that I plugged in. David typed in to ask how to best use MarshallBot to support business development for my coaching practice. So let's see what that looks like. Good. MarshallBot came back with a few steps. First is to identify specific areas to focus on. Next is to engage with personalized coaching. Use MarshallBot to get personalized coaching advice. Input your challenges and goals into the system. This is the whole learning and iterating. Incorporate feed forward, set accountability measures, supplement with human insight. You will see this come up constantly with MarshallBot, is to say, the human is the person that's really bringing the most value. This is supplementing what you as coaches are doing. Use MarshallBot to extend your reach. You may not be able to offer one-to-one coaching, but this is a good way to get people access. I'll tell you personally that as a stakeholder-centered coach, you can offer this to your clients and also offer to train their leaders to use it. That means you have to know how to use it. And if you're not sure, check out the article we just put out, MarshallBot, the new era in executive coaching. You can expect a lot more content on using MarshallBot, because this is really something that's going to be a competitive advantage, sustainable competitive advantage for SEC coaches. So these are some questions. Let me just, I'm going to do kind of a crash course here because I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. So we talked about what MarshallBot what problems it can solve for coaches, what problems it can solve for leaders. In terms of some interesting things, coaching activities, coaching exercises, these are wonderful ways to teach skills in a short period, to drive aha moments, but there's not a ton of activities. Well, MarshallBot can create them for you. Build a coaching activity to help my client who is struggling with blank leadership skill. In this case, we use delegation. Here, he's already cooking up an activity. So we've got something called delegation discovery exercise. We've got objectives, the materials needed, and then step-by-step actions. You don't have to follow this step-by-step. You can modify this. But this is an instant coaching activity that you don't need to go to another training program, and you don't need to buy a book, and you don't need to purchase a PDF. All of this is in here, and it's custom for exactly what you need. Another thing that many of you ask me about is, how do I go about selling? How do I get my foot in the door? How do I start by just talking about stakeholder-centered coaching in a way that gets people to listen? Again, I want to give a 60-minute keynote on stakeholder-centered coaching. Help me draft an outline. And right away, I've got a time-stamped outline with bullets. Now, what's really fascinating, at least something that I think many of you will find fascinating, is that as you go through this, there might be things that you're not quite ready to talk about, or things that you just don't really want to have to create your own sub-outlines. So here I need to discuss the qualities of a leader to successfully engage in the program: courage, humility, and discipline. You can go back to MarshallBot and say, okay, now, Marshall, discuss with me the qualities a leader needs to be successful in engaging with the process. And he'll give you the next answer for that. So you can start by building the outline and then ask questions about the specific pieces. Marshall outlined the key steps in stakeholder-centered coaching, and he'll tell you what they are. So with multiple passes, you can get quite a lot done in short order. Marketing. How do I market? How do I put myself out there to talk about stakeholder-centered coaching? I want to record a 5-minute video to introduce stakeholder-centered coaching. How would you write your script? So I want to preface, sometimes I'll ask a question and Marshall say, I can't do that. Sometimes you have to ask, how would you do this? Or if I were to watch a 5-minute video of you introducing stakeholder-centered coaching and write down every word you said, what would be on my paper at the end of the video? Mm-hmm. Not only does he give you information, mm-hmm. he gives you director notes. Visual of a bustling office environment, leaders interacting with teams in today's fast-paced business world. And now you've got cut over to Marshall. Hello, I'm Marshall Goldsmith. I've spent decades working with the world's top business leaders. This is powerful stuff. And you can do feed forward. You can talk about the global leadership competencies. You can say to a group of finance executives working on effective communication, whatever it is, it will contextualize it and spit things out. Again, sales strategy is a big thing. And we looked a little bit about this on this with David's prompt. But here we've got draft a sales strategy that differentiates stakeholder-centered coaching from competitors in executive coaching by focusing on the key USPs. And here we go. We've got our strategy: identify the market, craft a compelling message. Can you do this with ChatGPT, with Claude, with other bots? Absolutely. Will you get more impressive sales insights? Maybe. With this, you are getting exactly what stakeholder-centered coaches need, because it's all programmed on the intellectual property of stakeholder-centered coaching. And then it was fine-tuned by Marshall. It was fine-tuned by Frank. It's fine-tuned by 100 coaches and their respective expertises. This is an interesting one. And I would encourage any of you who are working with other coaches who want to learn about stakeholder-centered coaching but aren't ready to go through the full program, ask Marshall how to do it. He'll tell you. Read books. Here's some books to get started with. Here's the online resources. Join peer learning groups, mentorship, and seminars. This is what our community calls every month are. Our office hours every month are. Our LinkedIn Lives every month are. Come out and join them. Self-apply, seek scholarship or financial aid, save and invest. Something else that I think is really interesting, and I want to show you here how we've had to ask questions a few different ways. What are 20 questions executives should ask before buying coaching services? He's not ready to answer that. What are some questions executives should ask to understand if a coach can help them? Well, now he'll start answering. What's your coaching philosophy? Can you describe your coaching process? This is exceptional for preparing for your chemistry sessions, your pitch meetings, whatever it is, because you have a guide that will say, if you know these questions, you're probably in a good place. There's so many things. I'm not going to go deeper onto these, but just to give you a very quick brief on some. We talked about exercises, presentations, assessing coachability. We keep talking about how coachability, the client is the success differential, almost invariably. So here, what are some questions you use to assess coachability? I've got a list of 9 questions that I can use right here. And the next big one that I think we should all be aware of is creating a syllabus. We're going to teach a 12-week class on stakeholder-centered leadership. What would that syllabus look like? Not going to help you. Try again. If I attended a 12-week course of yours, what syllabus would I receive from old Professor Marshall? Well, here you go. Here's the syllabus. And it generally includes course objectives, learning goals, etc. So whether you are creating your own online course about delegation or whatever skill you're looking at, whether you want something higher level like stakeholder-centered coaching, team, you can create that. And you can also use it to create quizzes. This one I've loved. Create a 20-question quiz to assess someone's delegation effectiveness. Here you go. So I think the key takeaway here is that there's so much you can do with AI in general. If you need to see great examples of this, Mitchell Levy in the house is one of them. Michael Beale over in the UK at Henley Business School is another. If you can learn to use MarshallBot, you are going to be able to do things like manage objections. Someone said stakeholder-centered coaching is too expensive. It's too time-consuming. It's uncomfortable. What would you say to them, Marshall? He'll tell you. How would I give this sales presentation? How would I write this video script? What are ways to improve certain skills? Answering frequently asked questions. There's so much that can be done. And so my invitation to you is 2 things. If there is specific content that you want created about MarshallBot, if there's a training seminar that you want, a peer learning group, send it to coach@mgscc.net. All our initiatives are stakeholder-centered. You're our stakeholders. Let us know what you need and let us serve. Second is, if you have problems that you'd like to see if MarshallBot can solve or AI can solve, also send that and we'll tool around with it, see what we can come up with and send it back to you. But go to your chat now and let me just ask, has this been useful to you? Has this been a valuable 10, 15-minute demonstration? And feel free to share what you felt was particularly useful. So, Marshall, shall we go to Q&A?
Yeah, before Brandon, a couple of other thoughts that I forgot to bring up.
Mhm.
One is in the future, looking at the future of this, I'm going to get more and more of the top thought leaders in the world involved. For example, Martin Lindstrom is the world's authority on branding. All right, he's a member of Thinkers 50 for years. Martin has donated pretty much everything to MarshallBot. So I just asked MarshallBot a question. It's I want to build my personal brand. What advice would Martin Lindstrom have for me? Boom. Here's what he would say. Da, 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 da. All stuff that he thinks is great. I asked, what about Alan Mulally, the great CEO? How does this working together process work? Ding, 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 ding. I reviewed it with Alan. Alan said it's amazing. He's an engineer. If one word was out of place, he'd tell me. He loved it. How about, then he said, but more on the business process review. I said, go into great detail on business plan review. Ding, 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 ding. So moving forward, I'm going to incorporate the thoughts of a lot of the top thinkers in the world. The world's top thinker on quality is Shubir Chowdhury. Shubir is coming to my home in a couple of weeks. Shubir is going to donate what he knows to this. You can ask a question about quality. You're going to say, Shubir might say, Martin Lindstrom might say, Rita McGrath might talk about strategy. So I want to get some of the top thinkers of the world to donate what they know. Now, one thing I also didn't mention is I'm not naive. I'm not pretending all this new technology is all wonderful and it's all going to help the world be better and there are no problems. Far from it. Look, 25 years ago, I said media addiction will surpass drug addiction, alcohol addiction combined as a social problem. Unfortunately, I was right. I'm pretty aware of what can go wrong with social media, what can go wrong with the metaverse. So I talked to Martin Lindstrom about this. Martin is working on the world's largest metaverse project. Martin will not even carry around a smartphone. Why? He just feels these things are bad for your brain. I said, Martin, why are you working on this metaverse project? This thing is going to produce phenomenal addiction around the world. There are all kinds of problems are going to occur. People are going to become addicted to this metaverse stuff. Why are you doing that? He had a very profound comment. He said, this is going to happen. Option A, do some good, or option B, sit back and complain. I like that answer. This is going to happen. By the way, this train has left the station. Nobody on this call is going to do anything to stop the future development of artificial intelligence, I can tell you. There's trillions of dollars sitting on this table. This is going to happen. Option A, make the best of it, or option B, sit back and complain. So I'm going with plan A on this one. It's going to happen anyway. Let's make the best of it. Let's just make the best of it and do some good, as opposed to just sit back and say, this is terrible. And again, I'm not going to change it. You're not going to change it. So I think really, really important. Some more examples. Scott Osmond, Jacqueline Lane, and I wrote a book called Becoming Coachable. It's all in MarshallBot. You know, what are some keys to help someone become coachable? We put a whole book about it. Ashish Advani and I are working on a book called Modern Achievement. Ashish is the CEO of Junior Achievement. He is putting together a whole way you can use this to help young people. So again, it's not just me. I'm trying to involve a lot of the really smart people, good people I know from around the world, people from Thinkers 50, from Global Gurus, some of the top thinkers in the world to put their input into this. I think Philip Kotler is going to put his knowledge about marketing into this. He's the founder of modern marketing. So the idea is to get some really very smart, very nice, high-end people. And, you know, Philip Kotler, he's 90 years old. What's he saving it up for? Who just want to donate what they know to the world and just give it away. So that's just a little more of the orientation. Brandon, other thoughts?
Yeah, I would want to ask everyone here by quick show of hands, who had never touched MarshallBot prior to today's session? Who has never touched MarshallBot prior to today's session? Because we've got about half.
Yeah.
I think we just tipped it over. How many of you have signed up and have used it since as a result of today's session?
Good. Very
Brilliant.
nice.
Brilliant. Yeah, good. Again, send us messages. Tell us what you want to see. Tell us what problems we can help you solve. And Marshall, we've got some good questions. So let me jump into these.
Well, let's answer as best we can.
I do want to cue you, though, Marshall, about what you're doing in Nashville in August.
Oh, yeah. I forgot all about that.
Gotcha.
In August 11th through 16th, here's what's going to happen. Rather than our standard 100 coach meeting, I'm doing something quite different. And I'll give you the history of this. The history of the 100 coaches idea first is I came up with the idea of I'm going to teach all I know to 15 people for free. And then they get older, they do the same thing, pay it forward. So I made a little video, put it on LinkedIn saying, my name is Marshall, I'm going to give all this stuff away. It's free. And when you get old, you do the same thing. I'm thinking 100 people would apply, and I'll adopt 15, and these would be young people. I was wrong. 18,000 people applied for adoption. So if you applied to get in and didn't, don't feel bad. 18,000 people applied. But the problem was just who applied, who they were. I mean, Jim Kim was president of World Bank. I want to be in a group. Alan Lawley, I want to be in a group. Well, I can't reject these people. We can send a note to the president of World Bank. I'm sorry, you're rejected. I can't do that. Once that started, the project really became quite different. Well, now there are like 300 or 400 people in the group, but they're mostly very high-end people. What I didn't do is what I set out there in the first place. So this summer, I'm going to work with a bunch of young people. I'm going to kind of make a note that says no CEOs allowed. And if you're already rich and famous, you're not invited. So this is not for that audience. This is for young, high potential people. I'm going to do a couple of days training to teach them the basics of what I know for free. When I say for free, they have to pay expenses is all. I'm also then going to invite anybody who would like to teach the basics of what I do. So this would not be just the learner, but the teachers. The teachers will sit through the 2 days, and then we're going to do another 2 or 3 days just for the teachers. If I look back on my legacy projects, where have I succeeded and where have I failed? I'm very happy on the whole. If you look at it, MarshallBot is a legacy project I'm very happy with. My books, I could do better, but I sold 3 million books. That's fine. Internet, I've got 1.5 million followers. Social media, I'm not complaining. Mostly good. On the other hand, I used to train people to do what I do, train people about leadership. And really, I just kind of didn't do that. And really haven't dropped the ball on teaching others how to do it and move that on. There are only a few people in the world who are really good at it because I just kind of quit doing it. So this is going to be a way to train people to not be coaches, but this is for teachers who are interested in teaching what I know to people. So if you're interested, you can also just send me I'm going to put a little application. Brandon will send it to you. And we're going to have I don't know, maybe 15, 20 teachers. I'm going to spend 6 days in Nashville on this project. And again, the only cost is going to be expenses, the actual, food and all that kind of stuff, expenses. But it will be fun. Come to my home, Nashville, we'll have a good time, listen to music. You may actually have the wonderful privilege of hearing me sing karaoke, which I'm sure all of you are just can't wait for that one. So anyway, so it's going to be in Nashville, and it should be lots and lots of fun. So you're going to be invited to that as well. So Brandon, thank you for bringing that up. Brandon, do we have some questions?
We do. So one person had said, I've just asked MarshallBot, what are the top challenges that leaders face in 2024? This response is based on experience and research, which is fine now. Will it be updated annually? When will the database be expanded?
Great idea. And the answer is yes, it's going to be continually updated. For me, I can't speak what happens after I'm dead, but as long as I'm alive and as long as somebody's willing to support this for me is the rest of my life project.
All right. We've got we had several questions about remind us again when you're coming to India. Is that including the Middle East? Any ideas about Australia, Singapore?
Yeah, let me talk about that. When am I coming to India? I'm coming to India the end of May, and I'll be there at the very end of May, I think 28, 29, 20, no, I think I arrive in India May 26th, and then I'm leaving kind of June 8, 10, something like that. But I'll be in India and the Middle East. The whole schedule is not set up yet, basically, if you know what NASCOM is, I'm going to be at Bangalore for NASCOM. So I'm teaching at NASCOM. Then I'm doing a program for Adani. I'm going to have some other things set up in India for Hindustan Times, Economic Times. So I'm going to be there. And then I'll also be in the Middle East. I may actually end up staying an extra week. So I'm going to be in India in the Middle East for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going over to Oman to do one day, just a variety of different things. So yeah, I am going to be there.
Excellent. Okay. Um, so fractals, we had questions. Why, with all the providers out there, what made you choose fractals to partner to build MarshallBot?
One, they're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're not getting paid. Two, this is what they do. It's an AI company and it's free. So there are not a thousands of people standing in line saying, "Hey, can I donate a couple $1 million for you?" And we get paid nothing. So why did I choose them? Well, actually, they kind of chose me for this, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful partnership. They've been great, great people to work with.
Good. We've got another one about the how how would you compare responses from MarshallBot to responses of ChatGPT, Copilot, and other bots?
Very interesting question. And what I've been doing is I will ask a question to MarshallBot. Then I will ask the same question to ChatGPT or other bots. For example, ChatGPT. Then I will say, all I'd have to do when I talk to ChatGPT is say, how would Marshall answer this question? Marshall Goldsmith answer this question. So ChatGPT knows who I am. It will answer the question pretty well through the prism of Marshall Goldsmith. What I do then is I look at the answer, usually some of which is very good and some of it's not so good. Then the good part I feed into MarshallBot, the not good part I just omit. So I've been using other computer bots to train MarshallBot, and that's how I have been using them in training. So it's been a very, very helpful process.
Beautiful. I'll add on to that question that two key factors that determine the quality of a GPT is going to be its data set that it's drawing from and then the human tuning. And to remind that this is largely the data set of Marshall's articles, videos, books,
Right.
all of the things that you can plug in here that are related to leadership and so forth. And then it's human tuned by Marshall immensely, also by Frank and others.
That is a different variable because I can't change ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT makes a lot of mistakes. For example, I'll say, list 20 awards Marshall Goldsmith has won. The first 10 will actually be awards I won. 5 will be awards, but I didn't win them. And the next 5 are not even awards at all. If I ask it, list 20 more, it'll just make up 20. None of them are even awards. It just starts making stuff up. So it can reasonably easily get off the rails. So what's good about this is we have an edit function. So I can, if the answer goes off the rails, correct it. Now, it does get corrected immediately, but within a month it gets corrected. So that's a very good question.
Good. Another question I would ask to you, Marshall, as we're coming light on community questions, is we have a bunch of stakeholder center coaches here in the room now. What would you like to say to them if given the chance to give advice on how to be better, more effective, more successful coaches?
Well, I'm going to get away from technology for a second, talk more about the human dimension of life. As I've gotten older, I think I've gotten in many ways simpler and simpler and simpler. If you as a coach can give the people you work with one message, I think you always win. What's that message? My goal is to help you have a little better life. That's it. My goal is to help you have a little better life. People I coach are all big, famous people. I tell them, I'm here to help you have a little better life. Maybe help the people around you have a little better life. And then I always ask a question, is that okay? Is that okay? You might be shocked to learn 100% of those fancy people I've coached, when I ask that question, what they've all said, you know what? That's a good plan. When you work with people, if you communicate one message, My goal is to help you have a little better life. You win. So many people have an agenda, some other crap. If they really get the feeling you are sincere and you want me to have a little better life, they win. Now, this might sound very simplistic. For me, this is incredibly powerful. Let's just take this call. People on this call, you have the opportunity to give me a great gift. What gift are you giving to me by doing all you're doing? The gift of meaning in life. That is not a trivial gift. You cannot buy meaning in life. It's not for sale in the store. Well, let's say some of the stuff I do helps you help other people. Indirectly, I am helping those other people. Indirectly, you are providing meaning to my life. Well, that's a wonderful thing. That's something you can't buy. It's something you can't buy. It's not for sale someplace. So I think as a coach, my advice for you is the same. You look somebody in the eye and say, I really want to try to help you have a little better life. And they believe you, you win. That is surprisingly very unusual. Very unusual that is your number one agenda. And then help others have a little better life. And as a coach, if you help them and they help others, indirectly, you have helped those other people. You have made other lives better. Now, as I've grown older, I am not going to solve most social problems by myself. I'm not going to stop climate change. I'm not going to stop massive political issues around the world. I'm not going to do much about the Ukraine. On the other hand, maybe I can help a real human being have a little better life. That's okay. That's okay. So final comment for all of you is thank you for being part of this, and hopefully I can help you help some other people have a better life, help you have a better life. If that happens, it's a very, very good use of my energy. Thank you.
Marshall, before we sign off, I absolutely unbelievable. What can we do to help with MarshallBot?
Just we're having a contest. Ask it as many questions as you can. Write down your comments, send them to me. I'll just keep trying to make it better.
And how should we send those? Just by email?
Marshall at MarshallGoldsmith.com. Send me an
Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking wholeheartedly Marshall for being here, for doing this session, for giving this all away. Marshall, it is an incredible value. And for those of you who don't know, Marshall's in Tennessee right now. It's 10:30 on the West Coast, which means it's past midnight for him. He is here, he is up, and he is here to make sure that you all recognize how important what we're doing is. So thank you again for that. Marshall, the session has been recorded. We'll be informing you in the coming week about when it will be distributed. It will be inside the coach portal. Please send questions or any additional content that you'd like to see to coach@mgscc.net. And send Marshall a thank you note, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. Thank you for joining Stakeholder-Centered Coaching, where we believe everyone deserves a stakeholder-centered leader. Say hello and thank you to Marshall on your way out, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marshall, for your inspiration and wisdom and being so generous with your time. And happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, turn on and say goodbye on your way out, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your days.
Bye, Marshall.
Happy birthday to you.
Bye, Marshall. Bye, Brandon. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye, thank you.
I have another
Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.
So wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Marshall. Thanks, Brandon. You take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Marshall, thank you, Brandon.
Thank you
Heartwarming.
happy
Very much.
Thank
And
you.
happy birthday. Yes.
Happy birthdays, Marshall.
Thank you so much.
Dynamic. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like the sound of so many people saying thank you at the same time. That was fun.
This was a very quiet group, Mitchell. The first everyone turned on all at once. It was an orchestra of appreciation. It's just beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Marshall.
1:30
Good
a.m.
night, Marshall.
Thanks for staying up.